All right, here we got the tank up on the bench, and it's actually not terrible condition. It does have this one big hole and a couple little ones right there by it. I think that's really the only thing that's gone through. I tried to solder it. You see the solder there on the floor. I just thought, I'd give it a shot. It ain't gonna stick, so I'm gonna braze it. There's a couple of other kind of thin spots. There's one tucked up under there. I'll probably put a dab of Braze on a few of these thin spots, but really that's the only hole. So I think we can make this work, There ain't no sense in throwing it out and have to find something else, So I'll get on brazing. I'll show you what it looks like after I'm done, because that is definitely a two-handed deal there. Well, there's that one that was a hole. It's all patched up. I feel pretty good about that. It was kind of thin down here, so I put a little bit of rod on there. There was a little bit of a crater there, so I filled that in, and there as well. Now this one here, when I started heating it up to put the braze on there, it then opened up. So I mean, it was super thin right there, so I'm glad I hit that, and that made me feel better about hitting these other thin spots too. So I think we're in pretty good shape to get this tank cleaned up now, and we'll get her mounted on the tractor after I get it cleaned. As far as cleaning, I'm probably just going to put a bunch of water in it, slosh it around, and dump it out. And if I want to get real carried away, got a jug of I forget what the hell it is, muriatic acid. There it is. I've used that to clean out a couple of gas tanks too. But boy, oh boy, that is some nasty shit. You go messing with that. So it'll eat rust, but it is some really caustic stuff. So I hate messing with it. So I'm gonna try not to use that. Probably just use water, slosh it around a few times, clean it out, slosh it around with some gas to flush the water out, dump that out, and then we'll get her mounted up and plumbed in to the carburetor, which is now mounted. I guess I didn't show you that. I got the carburetor mounted. I found the linkage. Linkage was in a pile, so got the carburetor mounted up. A couple of, oh hell, I can't remember, 5/16 bolts, I think, for the threads in there. And the choke linkage, I got it stuck in the dash and got it all hooked up on the carburetor too. So we'll get the tank on there, get that plumbed in, and I need a couple of sections of hose, so I'll probably run out tomorrow, get some sections of 2-inch radiator hose to make the connection between here and the radiator. And on the bottom, same thing. You only need a stub about 3-4 inches long. So pick that up, and this sumbitch might just fire up tomorrow. Alright guys, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm not a real mechanic, I just play one on YouTube. So I'm testing the radiator there, filling up with water. Well, I don't have any plugs or anything. It's kind of a bitch to test a radiator. If you don't have plugs and caps and stuff like that for, all the different, the upper and lower water pipes and stuff. So I took the piece of section of pipe that I'm going to need to mount the radiator in the tractor and made a plug. This is 2-inch radiator hose, and the cap off of an oil jug is 2 inches. So I wrapped a little bit of a blue electrical tape around there just to seal up them ridges. So that might help you guys out if you're ever looking for a plug on a 2-inch radiator hose. That worked very well. So checking the gear oil on this Farmall Super A is pretty simple. There's a plug down here. I'm at the well, I don't know, I guess you call that the left side of the tractor. Down here under the fender, there's a plug. It takes a 1/2-inch wrench. It's a square-headed plug. You pull that out. If grease comes, or if gear oil comes out, then it's full. If not, you add it in up here. And that's just, there's another plug, takes a 1/2-inch. You stick your 1/2-inch ratchet extension down in there, and that's where you fill it at. So in order to get to this plug on some of them, and sometimes I had to do it on this one, you have to loosen up this this brake linkage. So that's just this little pin, and that cotter key holds that two together. So that's how you check your gear oil on these Super A's. Well, probably A's, and I know the Cubs just like this. It's, it might look just a touch different, but it's the same plug and an almost identical spot. Up there, it's the same fill hole. I think on the Cub, it's it's not on the plate that covers the shifter. It's back just a little bit. But I mean, once you do one, they're all the same. All right, so here's a little bit of an update. Connected the radiator and filled it up with fluid. It takes right at 3 gallons. So anyhow, I did that. And the battery, rather than try to tuck one up under the seat or something like a Cub would have, these A's and Super A's, they call for the battery to be right here. Well, there should be a box that bolts on down here on both sides. You know, and it comes up and it's real clean looking. It's solid wall and, you know, painted up red and everything. And they look great, but they rot out and they're expensive to replace. So I'm not going to build a whole box. What I am going to do is build a platform down here. It'll be a flat plate, and the far side will have an angle comes up. This side have angle comes up. And how I'm doing that is I got a battery sitting here. Just kind of extra from another couple of Farmalls that I was working on. So this is a 6-volt battery, but it's the size that belongs in that tractor. So I'm taking measurements off the tractor, and I'm kind of using this battery as a template. But I dug this out of my junk pile. It's actually a door, top half door off an old two-stall horse trailer. So if I can help it, I try not to throw too much metal away. So anyhow, this is going to be my base. I'm going to cut it to length here. This dashed line is going to be where I bend a 90-degree angle. So that side's got a 90-degree lip, about an inch up. This side's going to have the same thing, and then we'll flip it over, and we'll probably weld some tabs on the bottom here to engage that tractor and bolt up. And then essentially the battery will just sit on there. Then, you know, it won't be able to slide either way. If a guy wanted to, you could run a strap across it. You know, they make tie downs or bungee cord or whatever. So that's what we're going to do with the battery. All right, guys, so continuing right along with the battery hookup and pan and all that stuff. I pretty well got the pan how I like it. I got the tabs welded on there. I mean, it's on there, so that little pan ain't going nowhere. I've got the one cable made up. You know, got the battery terminal on this end. Got a lug connector on this end. That'll go down here to the starter switch, which hopefully will be getting in the mail here. The other side, I'm going to run, I got my, you can pick these terminals up. These are cheap. These, you know, you're better off to do like a solder on connector here. But, you know, anyhow, this is going to get us by. You can pick up a 10-pack of these things at Advance Auto Parts. They come on a strip like that. You ask for them at the counter, they're like 12 bucks. Otherwise, you got to pay like, I don't know, $3-4 bucks a piece for these things. So ask for them at the counter, they give you a whole pack of them. Anyhow, this, I think this is, best I can figure is this is like a 2 gauge or 2/0. Hell, I don't know. I'm not real good with electrical stuff. Anyhow, that's thick enough for a battery cable anyhow. So depending on the size of the cable, you know, you can make your own lugs up and save yourself a whole bunch of money. So this is 1/2 inch OD. I got little pieces of this. I got some rolls up over here. This is kind of my little stash of copper. So, you know, just a few different sizes. This 1/2 OD is 3/8 ID. If you see that on the shelf at the stores, it's the same stuff. They might only mark it one way. They might only call it 1/2 inch. It's 3/8 ID. Anyhow, that works good for 2 and 4 gauge. And then this 3/8 OD is smaller than that. That works good for, like, I don't know, anything a little bit smaller than 4 gauge, you know, 6 and 8 and stuff like that. So depending on what size of wire you're using, you can even make your little lug connectors out of this 1/4 inch. So anyhow, save yourself a bunch of money, cut yourself a little piece of copper, and this is about 1.5 inches long, and we're going to smash about half of it in the vise, and then we'll drill a hole in it and we'll solder on the other side, and I'll show you. I mean, it's real simple, guys. I'll show you after the fact what it looks like. But essentially, just smash it, you know, smash it half of it, and drill a hole in it, and kind of ream the other side out so you can get your wire to slide down in there. And I'll show you the setup when I solder that on. All right, guys, so we got our little lug made up there. You can see I smashed it, I drilled a hole in it, I'm not gonna lie to you, drilling that hole in these things is a real bear. So the drill gets almost all the way through and wants to like twist it out of your hands and stuff. So you got to fight it a little bit. Maybe a lot of times I'll take it to the bench grinder. Gets about 3/4 of the way through, and it wants to start twisting it out of my hand. I'll take this piece to the bench grinder, knock the burrs off the back, and that'll help it drill all the way through. But you're just going to have to fight this, guys. But it can be done. It's not so bad after you do a few of them. But anyhow, maybe stick you a socket or an extension in the end to give you something more to hold on to rather than just with your fingertips here. So anyhow, you're going to have to fight that. The next thing we're going to do here, we're going to put it in a vise. I'm going to take a little bit of soldering flux, and I'm just going to dabble my wire in it a little bit. Get a little bit and smeared around in there. The solder that I'm using here, I don't know why. This silver solder is supposed to be better for electrical connections, but my uncle is the smartest guy I know. He told me to use the silver solder when you're making up cables and wires and stuff. It is better than the plumbing stuff. So if he says it, that's good enough for me. So anyhow, I'm sure you can do it without, but he says it holds up better in the long run. So okay, that's the stuff I use then. So I'm going to heat that fitting up, and as I'm heating it up, I'm going to be just pushing this wire down in, and it's just going to melt right on down in. It's going to take about a foot or so. That gets about 3/4 full. You still want to continue to heat it. You know, make sure it's good and hot, and remove the heat. Get your cable right there, about 3/4 of an inch skin down or so, and just gently push it right down in that molten solder, and it'll solidify pretty quickly. So you just got to hold it for a few seconds, and that's it. Once it's on there, you know, cool it, take it to a little tub of water or something, and make sure you got a good connection. You know, pull on the end, make sure it's on there good. If you use too much flux, or if you don't get it hot enough, sometimes it does not stick. So make sure it's stuck on there good, and that's it. I'll show you after I get done with this one. Well, there you go. We got her soldered on there. So that's our ground cable now. We just got to get it bolted up to the tractor. And like I was saying, I'm going to bolt it right on to this backside of this hydraulic. It's not a pump, but reservoir or unit. I don't know what you want to call it. I'm going to bolt it right onto that. So I'm going to clean up that surface. Put the bolt to come out right back in there, and that's going to be our negative cable. Okay, so we got our front, oh hell, I don't know what you call it, front grill or 10. I mean, everybody calls them 10. So we got that mounted. I'm waiting on the sediment bowl still for the tank here. I went ahead and just sprayed some Rust-Oleum on that where I brazed that, just to keep it from rusting. I'm really not too concerned about the looks on this tractor. Again, this thing is going up for sale this spring, so you know, it's just a matter of getting it put back together. I went ahead and put the cultivators on it. Now these cultivators may end up coming off of this tractor. These cultivators are actually pretty nice, and they've got the hookup for the side dress fertilizer on there. So these cultivators are probably a little nicer than the ones on that other Super A. So these are probably going to end up coming off of this tractor and going on that other one, but I figured I'd go ahead and put them on just to make sure everything was here and everything looks good. So kind of stuffed the metal. That's the rest of the tin for this thing. Waiting on the gas cap and that sediment bowl, and then I don't have a muffler for it. I'm gonna talk to Grandpa and see if he's got one laying around somewhere. Got my nuts and bolts laid out there for mounting the tank. And man, I'm running out of stuff to do on this thing. And with that, I went ahead and cleared out a spot here big enough for that other Super A. So I think I'm gonna bring that other Super A over and park it right next to this one, and take the cultivators off of that one, put it on the other one. May take these tires off. I don't know, these are pretty good tires. Hell, this one's still got tits on the tread yet. You know, not just the sidewall. You know, this one's got tits on the tread, so that's a brand new tire. So these tri-rib tires, they may end up going up on that other tractor too. But Mail lady just come a little bit ago, so I went out to the mailbox and got our starter switch. So again, these things are real simple, real common with, if you've seen my other video about that Cub, you know, I talk about the starter switches. So we're going to go ahead and get that mounted up, and well, I'll update you here in a while.